The morning sun spilled over the rolling hills of Aldenbrook, casting long golden streaks across the patchwork of fields that stretched like a living tapestry. Dew clung to the blades of grass, glistening like tiny stars, and the scent of fresh earth mingled with smoke from village chimneys. In a small weathered cottage at the edge of the village, Sebastian, a young farmer, rose with the day. His hands were calloused from years of labor, his clothes patched and worn, yet his eyes held a flicker of curiosity on a restless longing for something beyond the horizon. Sebastian's life had been simple, shaped by seasons and soil. Each dawn brought toil, turning the plow, sowing seeds, tending the livestock. His neighbors respected his diligence, and his family loved him. Yet he often paused at the edge of the fields, gazing toward the distant city of Valoria. There, towers of stone and glass caught the sunlight, and tales of wealth, festivity, and opportunity danced through the village like whispers carried on the wind. To Sebastian, the city seemed a distant dream, brilliant, tantalizing, yet painfully out of reach. His father had once told him, "Sebastian, the earth will always feed us. Be grateful for what you have. Those who chase gold often lose their souls." But the words, though wise, could not silence the yearning in Sebastian's heart. He dreamed not of wealth alone, but of a life unbound by endless toil, where his choices might shape his destiny. The stranger from the city won. Late afternoon, the village of Aldenbrook awoke to unusual sounds. Hooves clattered on the cobblestone path, and a caravan of gleaming carriages rolled into the square. Merchants and nobles had arrived, their rich garments a stark contrast to the humble linen and wool of the villagers. From the largest carriage stepped a man in deep blue velvet, adorned with rings that glinted in the sunlight. Lord Varon, a merchant of Valoria, known for his wealth and cunning. He addressed the gathered villagers with a voice both commanding and smooth. "Opportunities await those who are bold. Gold lies in the eastern mines, in the markets of Valoria, and in ventures few dare to claim. And you," he said, fixing his gaze on Sebastian, "have the hands of laborers and the eyes of dreamers. Come to the city, work with me, build a fortune beyond your imagination." Sebastian's heart raced. That night, as the wind whispered through the wheat and the village settled under a blanket of stars, he wrestled with his decision. Could he leave the land that had nurtured him? The cottage, the fields, the village, everything familiar? Yet the promise of the unknown shone brighter than the fear of leaving. By dawn he had made his choice, gathering only what he could carry, and set out for Valoria. The ascent of Sebastian. The city of Valoria was everything Sebastian had imagined and more. Bustling streets paved with stone, markets filled with spices and silks, and towers that scraped the sky. Every corner radiated wealth, yet beneath the grandeur lay greed, envy, and the quiet desperation of those who would do anything for gold. Sebastian began as a laborer in Lord Varon's company, hauling crates of exotic goods and navigating the crowded streets. Days turned into weeks, weeks into months. He learned quickly, not just how to work, but how to negotiate, how to read intent behind a smile, and how to recognize opportunity where others saw only risk. Over the years, Sebastian rose steadily. His diligence, intelligence, and integrity earned him trust, and soon he managed trades, negotiated contracts, and accumulated wealth that the villagers of Aldenbrook could only dream of. Estates, carriages, fine clothes, servants, all became part of his life. Yet each day, as he stood atop his balcony overlooking the glittering city, a quiet emptiness lingered in his chest. The clink of coins and the gleam of gold could not fill the void left by the simplicity and peace of the village life he had left behind. The price of wealth one evening, during a grand feast in his marble hall, Lord Varon, now old and frail, raised a goblet to Sebastian. "You have done what few could," he said. "You've mastered the city." Sebastian smiled politely, but inside he felt a dissonance he could no longer ignore. Later that night, walking through his echoing hallways, he touched the polished surfaces, the tapestries, the treasures amassed through years of toil. Everything gleamed, yet the air felt hollow, and the silence was heavier than any burden he had borne in Aldenbrook. He thought of the village, of the fields, the fig tree under which his father rested, the scent of bread baking in his mother's hearth. Memories of laughter, labor, and quiet joy returned with such intensity that the gold in his chest seemed suddenly meaningless. Wealth had bought him power, comfort, and recognition, but it had also exacted a toll: solitude, distance from what truly mattered, and a sense of disconnection from life itself. The return to Aldenbrook at dawn, Sebastian left the city quietly, taking only a few belongings and the lessons he had learned. The road stretched for days, winding through forests, hills, and streams, until the familiar scent of Aldenbrook's fields reached him. The village had changed little. Children played by the river, the church bells rang at sunset, and neighbors went about their daily tasks with the same quiet rhythm. Upon arriving, the villagers stared in awe. The boy who had left with patched clothes returned as a man, tall, confident, dressed in fine garments. Yet his eyes held humility, and his smile carried the warmth of someone who had learned the value of simplicity. Sebastian visited his family's old farm. The fields were overgrown, the well dry, but the fig tree stood tall, its branches heavy with fruit. He sat beneath it for hours, letting the wind and the quiet earth heal the longing he had carried for years. He began to restore Aldenbrook using his wealth, not for luxury, but for the betterment of his people. He rebuilt the mill, repaired the wells, and founded a school so that every child could learn and dream beyond the constraints of poverty. Yet he kept only enough for a modest home, choosing a life of contentment and purpose over excess. The wisdom of Sebastian years passed. Travelers spoke of a man of wealth, who lived simply, who shared generously, and who valued the hearts of people over the gleam of gold. Children learned from his stories, and villagers remembered that true success was measured not by what one possessed, but by what one gave and the peace one carried within. One night under a moonlit sky, Sebastian sat beneath the fig tree. He placed a single gold coin in the soil, and the first coin he had earned, and whispered, "Gold can buy comfort, but it cannot feed the soul." True wealth lies in love, in giving, and in the harmony of life. He gazed at the stars, feeling a completeness that no palace or treasure could provide. The wind rustled through the branches, carrying the wisdom of the earth back to him, that a life of balance, compassion, and purpose was richer than any fortune in Valoria. The legacy: when Sebastian grew old, he was no longer remembered as the wealthy man from the city, but as Sebastian the Kind. His life became a legend, not for gold or grandeur, but for the enduring truth he embodied, that happiness is not found in wealth alone, but in the harmony between ambition, gratitude, and love. Under the fig tree, generations of villagers would gather to hear tales of the boy who left for gold, only to return with wisdom, a reminder that the simplest joys, shared with those we love, are the richest treasures of all. And so, Sebastian's life became timeless, whispered by the wind through golden fields, that the truest fortune is the peace of a well-lived heart, the joy of giving, and the courage to follow both dream and conscience, and